Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach. Hello and welcome back, everybody, to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. This is Shelby here today, and I have a very special guest to bring all of you. By the title of this, you know what episode this is, but we are going to hear from, or like I guess for the first time ever, from a non-coach on our podcast. None other, the resident non-coach in all of our lives, my husband, Rob. And Rob is the absolute love of my life. And to give you a little background on him, the most clear and concise way I can think to do it is just to use really coachy definitions here. So I'm going to rattle off how we categorize people here in the coaching world in hopes that it lands with all of you. But Rob is a Cancer. He is a generator in human design. He's a 6 on the Enneagram, which we just learned today. Good to know. He is the resident introvert in my life, an epic Star Wars nerd, and a borderline professional Lego builder. Another few fun things about my husband is that he loves the rules. He loves justice. His favorite superhero is Batman. That should be no surprise to anybody, even though I know Batman isn't a superhero. He is also the greatest dad. He's a previous Army captain and overall, oh my gosh, the overall glue that keeps our house together. And welcome, babe.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here and to meet all y'all.
Meet all y'all. My husband is also not from Texas, but he has fully adopted the Texas mindset. I think it could be probably a little helpful to give a little background on our relationship, just to give some context to these answers. We asked in the Facebook group what you wanted to know from a non-nurse coach, non-coach husband. And you guys came through with a lot of answers. But as I was reading the questions, I just really felt the need. I was like, it might be helpful for them to know that we had a little bit of a whirlwind romance and that we haven't actually been together we've been together for a long time, but in the big picture of things, not forever. Rob and I met in 2015?
Yep, summer.
Yeah. Rob is also really great with dates. He could probably tell you the exact date that we matched.
Our first date was July 17th, 2015. Right.
Yeah, he could tell you. But we met in 2015 and we met on Tinder, as millennials do. They meet their spouses via the internet. And I was living in Austin at the time. I was working in Austin at the time. This was right before I started to explore travel nursing, or I guess I was by the time that we met, because on our first date, what did you ask me? He was like, well, where do you see yourself going in your career, or something related to my career? And I was like, actually, I'm leaving for Denver, Colorado in 4 weeks. This date is really fun. But that being said, I did. I still left. Rob and I had a pretty immediate connection, but I still wanted to go and have my adventure. That was my goal for even in nursing school, I wanted to do travel nursing. And just because I met some boy on Tinder did not mean that I was going to give that up. And Rob ended up coming out with me to Denver to help me and my travel partner, Sarah Beth, move. And you've kind of just been around ever since. But Rob was stationed at Fort Hood in Killeen at the time. So he was spending some time there. And then, so we met summer of 2015. You left for Korea when?
Beginning of 2016.
Yeah. So then you were gone for a year, right? Just about
9-10 months.
Yeah. So while he was in Korea, I was still doing travel nursing, having the best time ever while Rob was stuck in Seoul. And when he came back, I know that we had set the agreement, we dated long distance that entire time. And we, I don't actually know that we set this agreement, but I had set this agreement with myself that I wanted to make sure that we still liked each other when we were on the same half of the planet. So he came back, was still stationed at Fort Hood. I moved back home to Austin, and we continued to date for a few more months, and then we got engaged not too long after that.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. And so we got engaged on the day before my birthday in May of 2017.
Yeah.
And then we were married by November of that year. And then we were pregnant by July?
Yeah.
July of 2018. So if that doesn't give you an idea of the pace that Rob and I operate at, I don't know what else will. Like, our life has kind of been a blur ever since. We jump in hard, and we do the thing. But I think that it can maybe provide some perspective just as we answer this question, that Rob and I did not have a long-standing relationship before I became a coach, because I called you, I think like a month before we got married, and told you about nurse coaching for the first time. And so our entire marriage, I have been in the nurse coaching realm, which has, been since 2017. So also one thing I remember, Dave, like nobody's business, but he can barely remember conversations that we had yesterday. So we're going to do our best here, team. And we're going to give it our best shot. So Rob,
so not one word answers, right?
So not one word answers would be great. And I can help you elaborate along the way. Anyways, let's jump in. Do you remember when I called you before we got married and told you about nurse coaching for the first time?
I don't. I don't remember the exact details or like when it was, but I do know you called and were very excited about whatever this nurse coaching stuff was. And I mean, at the time, I didn't really understand what it was. I thought she was going to be a sports team coach for nurses or
a sports team coach,
coaching something in the hospital, peer support type like that. But I do remember the passion you had for this and the excitement, because I know you were kind of at the end of your traditional nursing journey. You were thinking you wanted out or looking actively for ways out of traditional bedside nursing. And when you showed the amount of enthusiasm and excitement for whatever nurse coaching is, and for the record, I know what nurse coaching is now. I was excited for you. I could feel the buzz coming off you, and knew that you were gonna do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to be fair, I remember, because this is a pivotal moment in my life. I remember that phone call in great detail of hanging up the phone with Heather Lapidus and then immediately calling Rob and saying like, hey, I just learned about this thing called nurse coaching. I don't know what it is yet, but I think that I should do it. And I'm really excited. Rob and I were also paying for our wedding at the time, which we balled on a budget pretty well for our wedding. But I just remember investing. I mean, we were just investing a lot in our future in that 6 weeks between investing in our wedding and investing in nurse coaching. So, the lack of clarity on what nurse coaching was probably fully on me, because I didn't even fully understand it yet. But the plan was for us to get married in November. And then where were you living? You were in Oklahoma?
Yeah, because I moved to Oklahoma right after I proposed to you, basically, again, because that's the way our relationship rolls. Not by choice. Army sent me.
Yeah.
I would prefer not to leave my fiance, but sometimes you gotta do what the job tells you to do.
Yeah, that's right. You were far away at the time. So we were living about 6 hours apart while we were engaged, waiting to get married. And then after we got married, I was going to move to Oklahoma with you. And I was in nurse coach certification. I remember taking collective calls on the floor of the house we lived in Oklahoma. And then still while I was in certification, we moved again to New York State, like really, really northern New York. So there's a lot of transition happening during that time. Like every big life moment. Career transition, marriage transition, moving cross country transition. We hit all three nails on the head. But yeah, I do like that you can at least remember that. That's sweet.
I try.
So by the time I graduated certification, I wrapped up a travel contract in New York and I was done. I was so done. I hated working at that hospital in New York. You guys have heard me tell the story 100 times. I won't retell it again, but I quit and I found a business coach, and I had never invested in myself like that before. Rob and I were both lucky enough and privileged enough to have our college paid for. My parents so graciously paid for all of my higher education, and then the Army paid for Rob's. So
you all paid for mine, so thank you.
Yeah, the government paid for Rob's. So like this investment, what felt pretty, really foreign to me. I didn't see any other way to make it happen other than to hire help. But I remember being really just unsure of how that conversation was going to go, of whenever my coach was like, yeah, it's 10 grand. I know I can help you. Do you want to do this or not? Like, you and I had never made a big adult decision like that yet. And yeah. Do you remember that conversation?
Again, not the details, but I do remember that you wanted to get into this coaching thing and that you needed a coach to help you coach, and it was going to be 10 grand, right? You said? And I was like, whoa, that's a lot of money for a life coach or a business coach, whatever type of specific coaching she did, both of them, I guess, technically.
Yeah.
But my initial reaction was like, that's a lot of money. Like, what do you get out of it? Like, there's not a tangible reward. Like normal investments, you invest 10K, at 8% in so many years, I'll have so much money. But like something so subjective as a person life coaching you, or essentially giving you advice or feedback or being a sounding board, what is the tangible getaway from that? So the $10,000, like if it was a couple grand even, or a couple hundred, like, yeah, sure, go for it. But that was a lot. But you explained the benefits of what you can get out of it, and what she would do for you. And I did like a little bit of like Googling, and like all the best coaches have coaches. I learned that relatively early on. And that's something that kind of follows Shelby's career. I know she's talked about on her podcasts because, one, I listened to them, and two, like I've seen her journey of that. Like, to be the best coach you can be, you have to have a coach. So, I didn't price shop around or anything. Shelby was really in love with this coach and had been following her for a little while. So, it's what she wanted. And like I said, she showed that enthusiasm that I'd seen her enthusiastic and excited about things before, but never for career wise. So I thought that if we were going to do this, we had to do this right. And I trusted in her that she did at least shop around or do a little bit. And that if this is what she wanted, then we need to go for it.
I think it's important to like highlight here where those questions came from you. Because like those seem like pretty rational questions to me. But I remember if you would have like rapid fire questioned me in the moment, I was like in a really fragile place of like, I kind of needed you to just jump on board or I was going to quit.
Right.
And so like, were those questions coming from a place of like that you questioned my ability or my choice, or were they just like the first questions that came to your mind?
They're probably just the first questions that came to mind. By that point, I had known you pretty well.
We were married.
Yeah. Well, I was trying to think if we were engaged or married, but still, regardless, I knew you pretty well. And I know.
And pregnant by this point.
Are we in 2017?
Yeah.
I don't know if we're in 2017 or 2018.
Yeah, no, we were in New York.
Okay.
In the kitchen of our New York house by the island. I remember so deeply. I was newly pregnant.
All right. So whatever. I knew you very well and everything. But at that point, I know not that you don't fail or you can't fail or haven't failed in things before, but I knew you were going to give it 100% God honest effort to do the best you could. And a quote that comes to mind right now. I'm allowed to curse a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
For any Parks and Rec fans out there, there's the character Ron Swanson, and this quote's always stuck with me. He says, don't half-ass anything, whole-ass one thing. And I thought that this perfectly applied. In that if we were going to do this, if this 10K investment is what she needs, and she doesn't guarantee the return on investment in however many months or weeks or whatever. But it seemed like the best way for success. So we just whole-assed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that is where a lot of nurse coaches can kind of shoot themselves in the foot a little bit, is like, I hear this all the time of like, I know I need your mentorship, but I can't afford it right now. And like, can you afford not to? Like, had I not invested in that coach at that time, I was in such deep resonance with her. And I knew that if I worked with her and I just gave it my all, I knew that there was no way that I was going to fail. And had I not invested at that time, there was a lot of ways I could have failed. There's a lot of ways I could have spun my wheels. And there's a lot of ways it would have been a self-fulfilling prophecy of not finding success or not finding success as quickly. So let's all be inspired by Ron Swanson today. And if you've never watched Parks and Rec, highly recommend. Go check it out and be inspired by the man with the mustache. Okay, so next question here is, what was it like? Kind of like that first year navigating the unpredictability of entrepreneurship with me. Do any moments like stick out for you? I feel like I kind of kept that part of my life a little tucked away in secret.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it kind of what I remember, it's kind of like the I don't know, the basic highs and lows of the first year of an entrepreneur's journey. The highs of just booking a call, and then the low of, oh, they said no, and then the high of getting a client signed for 3 months or whatever.
I used to like run around the house whenever
the lows of whenever they ghosted you or didn't show up, or I don't think anyone like demanded a refund or anything like when they stopped showing up, but like the lows of like, am I doing something wrong? But then I mean, you kept pushing through, and that's the biggest thing, is just your determination to make this work for you. And like, if a client didn't work out, you were out looking for other clients, and you tried various ways to find clients. And then you would obviously keep HIPAA and everything, but over to the dinner table, you talk about your clients and like, oh, wow, like they're showing up, but they're not doing the things. Like, how do I work through this? And like, but you just kept pushing forward. Like there was no, at least from what I could see and what we talk about, going backwards. Like you had a down moment, but you knew that you didn't want to go back to bedside nursing. So like, you have to make this work for you. And if that wasn't the way to find clients, you just found a different way to find clients. And if all your proposals, you had a couple of negatives or no's in a row, like did something different, because they say that, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So by no means calling you insane or anything.
That's okay if you do.
But yeah, it was, I didn't see a roller coaster, but it was definitely like waves, like ups and downs, not crazy angles or anything like that. But it was cool seeing you try and succeed eventually in doing something new and being along for that journey.
What about the unpredictability in income?
We're still in 2018, right? So yeah. I was in the Army. I was making decent money. So I wasn't totally worried, but I knew I was going to be changing careers and getting out of the Army in a little bit, which would involve taking a pretty drastic pay cut. But I knew I wanted out. So it was just that uncertainty of, we're definitely going to have to change our lifestyles if you couldn't supplement or at least kind of get back to our level of income we were at with just mine while you were trying to figure out nurse coaching. But again, like Shelby said, we're very fortunate. We've great families. Our colleges were paid for. Our families are around. And we knew we were very fortunate. We're never going to be homeless or hungry. So we could take that little bit of a risk on Shelby doing this, and then I could always find work. I wasn't too really sure about that, even if it was something that wasn't in alignment with what I wanted to be doing. I could at least bring money in while we tried to get more of a life that we wanted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think before I even started, like I quit my job. So I wasn't working at all. My only income was coaching income. And then I think I barely broke even on my first year of coaching, just with what I had invested into it. So like my contribution to the family financial health was minimal at best. But I think you said something really important there of like, we were in a position to where if we were gonna risk it for the biscuit, so to speak, like that was the time to do it. That was before Ada had been born, that, you know, like there was never going to be just you and me again, to where it would only affect us. And yeah, if there's ever a time to do something dumb, it's definitely in your 20s. There's plenty of time to financially recover. I would even argue at any time you could pull that off. But I think the only time, honestly, that finances really came and were a topic of conversation for us is
our heating bill.
Our fucking heating bill. So Rob is originally from New Jersey. He's familiar with like regular 4 seasons and regular 4 seasons of cold, or not 4 seasons of cold, but a season that has cold within the 4 seasons. I'm from Texas. I am not familiar with that life at all. And then we moved to upstate, or not even upstate, to northern New York, 20 minutes south of Canada, to where it could rain or snow freaking 4 feet in 4 hours. And we lived in a bigger house that had terrible insulation, and we paid so much money to heat our house. I had friends from Texas sending me heating blankets in the mail. Like we kept our house at like 68 degrees.
We were like taping windows and doors.
Yeah, like it was just so cold, and the propane companies up there like run highway robbery on you. And so like it did get tight from time to time because we were paying rent, and then we were paying $1,800 sometimes to heat our house.
It was like a one-time thing,
but I mean, still, there's 9 months of winter in that part of the country. So, I just remember that like every 6 weeks we would get a propane bill, and it would cause you to stress, and it would cause me to stress. And I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember one time just being like, hey, we know that this bill is going to come every 6 weeks. And if you're going to freak out about it, I need you to freak out over there, and I'll freak out by myself, but we cannot freak out together. Like it's too much for me to freak out with you over this. It stresses me out too much. And that's literally the last time we ever talked about the propane bill. So, I like, it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies. We did literally go cold for a few months, but for me, I had to protect my headspace around money, because if I got graspy, if I came from a place of scarcity, like then that was going to directly affect my ability to sell clients at that time, because I was just so new in that mindset. Anything was going to rock me. And like, thank you for honoring that boundary with me, because it was,
of course, my love.
I don't do well speaking my boundaries, or I didn't back then. That might have been the first time I ever did it. Okay. So was there ever a time, kind of in the same vein here, was there ever a time you wanted me to go back to work?
No, because I knew how miserable, maybe a little dramatic, but how unhappy you were with nursing in the hospital setting. So I wouldn't say there was a desire for you to go back to it. I knew you were doing what was best and what you wanted to do, or what you thought you wanted to do. So I was all for it. I mean, I did have the thought that if for whatever reason this nurse coaching thing crashed and burned, like, and we needed the money, you could always go back to work. I don't know if I ever explicitly said that, because I didn't want you to think I didn't want you to think I didn't think you could succeed, if that makes sense. But that was a brief thought I had, but I was never gonna let you know. I mean, I did believe in you, but there was that little nugget in the back of my brain that, like, if for some reason we need the money, this crash and burns, like there is that fallback. But also I knew that that wouldn't be great for your mental health because of why you wanted out of traditional nursing. So I didn't want to even bring that out or put it in your head in case you weren't thinking about it. And I just wanted to support you unconditionally because, I mean, well, we were married, so I took a vow to do that too, but I go all in anyway. So I just wanted to support you. And yeah, I mean, long answer to no, I never wanted you to go back to traditional nursing.
Yeah, it was always an option, like a rational option on the table for us, for me to go back. And there are a lot of things that ended up happening to where I didn't have to go back. So you got out of the Army, and then we moved back to Texas. And then that was we moved back to Texas in 2019. You got out of the Army right as the pandemic.
Yeah, January 2020.
Yeah. And I was supposed to be temporarily living with my parents for about 6 months while Rob went to start a different career. Yeah. And that ended up falling through because of the pandemic. And but that still left us at my parents' house in Texas. And Mom and Dad, if you're listening, we owe them kind of everything.
A little bit, yeah.
At the moment, my parents never pressured us to move or to get out. They had open doors, and as we just navigated 2020 together, Rob was able to become full-time stay-at-home dad, and then I was able to really double down in my practice. And that's when, Laura and I started talking and being in cahoots with one another, and it really opened up some bandwidth for me to be all in. And I mean, without that, it would have been way more stressful. Without the safety net of the roof over our heads, this all would have been more stressful. But there are just a few things that lined up really well for us to where we were taken care of, to where I didn't have to go back to work. So yeah, thanks, Mom and Dad. You're the best.
Thank you. Also, my parents were very supportive of everything too.
Yeah, of course.
If they're listening, I don't want them to feel unappreciated. They were supportive through this whole journey and everything.
The only reason we didn't go to New Jersey is because I didn't want to live in New Jersey, and that's not a personal attack on any Kurz family member. Texas has my heart, and that's both of our families had open door policies and were super generous with that several years for us. We just moved into our new house 6 weeks ago, so that was a big holding pattern for us. Okay, let's move along to a different question here. This is from our lovely neighbor, Amanda, and family photographer and overall wonderful human being. She asked, what's it like to be married to someone who is successful?
It's nice. I mean, on the most basic level, we're married, obviously. And on the most basic level, her successes are my successes, be it professionally, personally, mentally. So it's cool to be kind of married to, I'm using my words here, not Shelby's, but a rock star in her community, and one of the most forefront leaders in the nurse coaching community. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I don't go around bragging about the fame of being married to someone so successful or anything like that, or oh, do you know my wife is this nurse coach? She has a Facebook group with 10,000, 1,000, however many people, and she has a podcast with so many downloads. But no, it's cool to see the person you love the most succeed, and that's all I've ever wanted for her in life, is to be happy and be successful. And I'd say we're here. Not that we can't keep going more to here, but
yeah, we've pretty well arrived. Yeah. It feels pretty good. Yeah. And in that same thought, what is it? So Rob still very much wants his own thing. Like you're really great at being a stay-at-home dad, but I know it doesn't fill all of the cups for you. You still, and Jesus, y'all, we have been so patient with the freaking federal government to let the cookies fall in a way that is like supportive of our family. And so what has it been like watching this take off for me while you've been stuck in limbo for like 3 years?
I mean, it's fine. I mean,
It's fine. I'm fine. Why do you ask?
Shelby always jokes about when I say fine, but if there's any guys out there, you know that fine generally means fine. There's not any hidden meaning to it. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I didn't have any worries that I wouldn't be a good stay-at-home dad or that something might never work out. But it definitely took some getting used to coming from the Army to a totally different environment. Just interpersonal relationships are a lot different. And then to just kind of make that change kind of suddenly with the uncertainty of the pandemic at that time, and then not having the career I wanted pan out, and then applying for other jobs and going through those processes, like it was a lot. But I mean, at the end of the day, all you could really do is just kind of keep marching forward, to use a little Army colloquialism there. And as much as I was, trying to set things up for the future and prepare, I could just, keep, marching forward. And as we say in the Army, shooting that target that's right in front of you, shooting that 5-meter target, and then you can worry about the further stuff down the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, this has never been our dynamic, but like my success doesn't take away from the possibility of your success in your career or vice versa. And I'm really grateful that hasn't been our dynamic, but I know it does exist still for some, to where it feels like, well, if you go all in here, then like I have to sacrifice in X, Y, and Z. And I just think that there's many ways to navigate that we don't have time for today. But we've talked a lot about careers and the next right move, and that target changes for us actually quite a bit, because the job that we've been waiting on for a while did come through, but it was going to cause you to have to leave.
Yeah, in the middle of, or not the middle, the end of a pregnancy, and maybe miss the birth and the first couple months and weeks, and that was not in the best interest of anyone. Like, I know you were stressed about it, I was stressed about it, which was causing us to stress off of each other, stressed about it. So ultimately made the right call. I know what I know to be the right call. I'm a little mad at myself. It took me a little long to come to that decision, but eventually I made the right call of like, family has to come first. And something I'm always saying, and I was finally able to actually practice it. But yeah.
There's never just like one decision that we've made that's stuck. It's pretty fluid, and I think that's kind of how we've navigated.
That's what we know too.
I guess we're pretty good.
If things were like, I mean, not that it's ever going to be perfectly get your signal from the universe, now is the time to do this. Sometimes you just got to act. What do you call it? Messy action. And just do something, and then like, yeah, you can prepare, but I mean, even best laid plans fall apart sometimes. So you just gotta literally roll with the punches sometimes. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, I have some more questions here.
Go for it.
But
should we do a lightning round?
Yeah, I was like, we've kind of answered some of these a little bit. I guess one thing I just want to get a clear answer on is like, was it a conscious thought for you to like that you had to be supportive of my decision, or was it fluid? Because like from the stories that you're telling right now, it sounds like a really natural way for you to show up for me. It wasn't like I didn't have to force you on board. I didn't have to convince you to get on board. I didn't have to like come up with a PowerPoint presentation on why I thought this was a good idea. It's just like I came to you with a nudge, and you were there. You that was it. Like it was very little. But was there any effort on the back end for you to be supportive and remain supportive over the past few years?
No, I'd say no. I mean, it wasn't like a transactional thing, like I'll support you on this and you'll support my career moves that might move us across the country or whatever. It was just, this is what you want and I want you to be happy, so support you. It wasn't like a transactional or anything. Like,
it wasn't transactional, meaning that like, and I just think that that's who you are.
Like it just came automatically to support you. Like I wanted you to be happy, so this is what you want. Cool, let's do it. All in.
Yeah.
And I know it's not everyone can be as the same or as fortunate or whatever, but are in the same position to be able to support you like that or support their spouse like that. But it was just, I don't know, there was no other option other than to support you 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's just also who you are at your core as well. To be fair, you might be thinking, wow, Shelby has endless support from Rob all the time. That is also not true. I tried to convince Rob no less than a dozen times to live in an RV with me, and he would not do it. So he does have limits. He does have a line in the sand. And there are things that he will not get behind. And my husband doesn't succumb to peer pressure, which is also my least favorite thing about him, because I'm really good at peer pressure. Yeah, I think that it just comes naturally for you. Do you think that this step into coaching has changed our relationship at all?
Yeah. I mean, I would say part of coaching is being more self-aware of yourself so you can help others. So you're definitely, I mean, you've always been intuitive and more self-aware than I've ever been. But the nurse coaching, life coaching journey has only caused you to be more aware of your emotions, those around you and stuff like that. So you definitely brought that into our relationship and have helped me, I'd say like work through some things or just become more self-aware myself and inspire me to care. Like care a little more about things and like just be more, I'd say just aware in general, like of be it my physical health, my mental health, my parenting, my social interactions, things like that. So it's definitely, you're not like, maybe you are coaching me, I don't know, and I don't know it.
That was going to be the next question.
But yeah, you're definitely, I would say it's been a benefit to our relationship.
Yeah.
And our marriage.
Do you feel like I'm ever trying to stealthily coach you?
Not stealthily. You do everything pretty deliberately. But yeah, no, there's definitely been times where like I can see the coaching wheels turning a little bit on. I mean, it's not to like coerce me or do anything negative. It's for usually, almost always, my own betterment, especially when we're having more meaningful like conversations or talking about life plans or important decisions we have to make. When you genuinely want my opinion and I say things are fine and you think fine doesn't mean fine, and through talking and using not nurse coach voodoo magic or anything, but you get me to like actually open up or like explain my thoughts or feelings or ideas a little more. So I definitely notice you doing it, but it's not from a place of negativity or because you want something. You're just trying to deepen our relationship.
Yeah, it's more of like getting you to elaborate.
Yeah, because I'm not the most wordy person.
Yeah, people are not going to believe that when they listen to this because they're going to hear all of these words that you've shared here. But Rob is, I mean, genuinely, when he says fine, he means fine. And that is just not good enough for me.
Let the record show that she does acknowledge that fine means fine for me.
I need more details. I need more to sink my teeth into. And just from my end of the thing, my side of the coin here is I try really hard, or I did in the beginning. I tried really hard not to coach Rob because there was no consent around it. And I think that I'm better now at just asking like more curious questions of when I don't understand something. I don't jump to accusing Rob of one thing or another. I just ask more questions until I understand. And that's about as coachy as it gets.
Yeah. And then you explain too why you're asking these questions, that you just want to understand better, or like why I'm thinking something I'm thinking and not making it clear.
Yeah. It's really easy for me to assume. I would say that can be a pretty big hang up for me. So asking more curious questions has been the biggest thing that has changed in our communication style for sure. All right. So that kind of leads to the last questions here and I feel the need to clarify. Well, actually, when I posted that question in our Facebook community of like, Rob's never had a coach before, that's not actually true anymore. So Rob, since posting that, has had his first couple of meetings with a nutritional coach of sorts. And are you okay if I share at all? That he's also gone to therapy a couple of times, albeit we're not like really impressed with this therapist so far. But Rob is giving it the good old college try before we pivot. And so the door has opened their team. It has happened. But what is, for someone who hasn't ever experienced this before, why not?
Great question. I don't know, just for the longest time, especially really before you even got interested in life coaching, it wasn't even something, or nurse coaching, on my radar at all. I mean, like, obviously I've heard of it. You hear of all the super successful CEOs and Hollywood people and businessmen, like, yeah, hiring life coaches to guide them in their businesses to multi-million dollars and stuff. But I never really thought of it as something the average person could have or should have even. And then even as Shelby was starting, it didn't really cross my mind. I didn't know, like, one, I needed one, or I could use one, or then like what I would even use it for, because I was not thrilled with my career prospects, but I knew I was going to be changing careers and I still knew what I wanted to do. So I was like, oh, I didn't really know. And then I was like, relationship wise, things are going pretty well. And then like, I knew there were coaches for all different types of things, but I didn't think it was something I needed. But then being more around it and seeing the various types of coaches Shelby's hired and some of her friends that have been in using coaches and things like that. And then hearing all of, here's my Texas, all y'all's success stories of having coaches and looking into coaches to better yourself, to help other people. It's definitely something that's like opening my eyes up, that it's definitely something that could be beneficial to me. And this may come as a surprise to you, Shelby, but I'll make the official announcement here that I am going to start actually looking for coaches for myself now.
Whoa. Live mic drop.
Rolling her eyes because something she's been telling me for literally years now. So that's another part of a recent journey I've started of trying to better myself, be it physically, nutritionally, mentally, things like that. So I am officially taking the next step on my journey of discoverment.
It's happening, everybody. Just to be clear, it's taken 5 years to get to this day.
In no way did Shelby coerce me into this. She's not holding any weapons to me right now to say this to, boost the ratings for this podcast. But yeah, so I've never had one. I've never thought I had a need for it, but I mean, seeing the success Shelby's had in her business and personally, it's definitely something that I don't know what I'd use a coach for yet, honestly, still, but that's part of having a coach, I guess, too, is to help you.
Yeah. I also think that there's a really big intention that you just sent out into the world of like, I think it'll probably be clear here pretty soon on what you could use support in. But
starting my own podcast to take down successful nurse coaches.
Well, first, I'm proud of you, babe. That's
Thanks.
Exciting. And I have been telling you this for a really long time, right? But at the same time, I know this about you, to where if I force you, or if I push, or if I give ultimatums, like, that's not the place I want you to have to come from. I don't want it to feel like you're backed into a corner. Because then I think the dynamic of whatever coach you hire, I'm in the equation with you, like in some weird
That
way.
should be my journey.
Yeah, and
that you can
it
come
feels
along
way
with.
better for you to choose it on your own. Like, it feels so good. And to be honest, I tell everybody in my life all the time, whenever they come to me with a problem, it's like, do you need friend Shelby right now? Or do you want me to recommend a coach and help you solve this problem? Like that's kind of how the boundary I've had to put for myself, because I think that everyone could benefit from a coach.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of seeing that these days now too. So
yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, that's a really high note to end on, my dear. And also, one story that I wanted to make sure to mention here is that early in my coaching days, I went to an event where there was a couple on stage, and the wife had been very immersed in personal development for several years, and her husband like worked corporate and was just a normal dude for a really long time. And I think they were married like 15 years. And she asked him to go on a yoga retreat of sorts with her, kind of on a whim. And he went, and it like opened his eyeballs to all the things. Like, it landed, it connected, it was in resonance. And then like he went on his own rabbit trail of personal development. And the biggest takeaway that they had for the audience from experiencing that together is just like, don't rush the process. Nothing is ever on accident or late or not on time, that everything is unfolding exactly how it should. And it didn't mean anything to me in that moment because I was just so new to coaching, but it's really like been an anchor for me in not getting frustrated or not forcing you to jump in and be excited about this stuff that excites me. And it's okay that it took 5 years. It actually doesn't change anything at all. It feels like actually a bigger win to me now than it would have.
So all that matters is the decision was made.
Yeah.
Whether it's a year ago, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
or now, we're here now.
We're here now. All right, team. Well, babe, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No,
That's usually the question I ask Laura.
Yeah. No, just thanks for having me. It's been nice to talk, and hopefully help some people out there, or they can, apply some of what I said. And
ooh, you know what would be a really good question to end on is, what advice would you give to a husband whose wife has a crazy idea that he doesn't understand?
Go for it.
You're talking to the husband, not the wife.
Yeah, you gotta do what's best for you and your family, but think of, it's cheesy, like things of the positive things that could come out of it, not the negative things, and just support your spouse. You'd support her or him any other way, probably. So why not support her or him if she's found maybe a new career? And then regarding, I guess, the investment, because depending on what coach you hire, whether it's Lauren, Shelby, or anyone else, like, it's going to be some type of financial investment. But think of it like any other career training job investment thing. Doctors and nurses and really anyone that gets a college degree, they have thousands of dollars in debt for a job. So why not invest in yourself for this new career? And yeah, you'll probably get your money's worth back. It might take a little bit of time, but at the end of the day, it's going to give them that job satisfaction, which increases their personal satisfaction, which increases the spouse's personal satisfaction. So just support them. If you're unsure of things, talk it through, and let your concerns be known, and just support them. Let me say that again. Support them, support them, support them. Stalling for ideas here.
As Nike says,
just do it. Yeah.
All right, babe. Well, thank you for being here with us and sharing your story and sharing your journey. And did you wait to tell me that you were going to hire a coach until we recorded this?
Yeah, shock factor. Gotta get those clicks.
All right, team. Well, we appreciate you tuning in today, and we hope that this was helpful for you to hear. Just to, like, Laura and I have both very, very supportive partners, but we have had different journeys in what that support looks like. And it was exciting to bring you our side of things. And Rob is in our Facebook group, The Successful Nurse Coaches. So if you want to come creep on him, he thinks it is absolutely the weirdest thing that people friend request him on the internet that he doesn't know.
And I'm probably not going to friend you back, but you can try.
But feel free to find him. He exists there. He creeps on all of you in a loving way, keeping tabs on everybody.
I do not creep on any of y'all.
A little bit.
It pops up on my newsfeed because I was added so she could practice adding links and stuff. I don't generally read y'all's comments and stuff.
All right, everybody. We will see you next week. Same time, same place. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will catch you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.